You're welcome to this section. My name is Ssebuyungo Wilber Kivekayunga. In this lecture, we're going to look at pivot tables and how you can use pivot tables in dealing with data sets so that you're able to analyze your data without necessarily using formulas or functions directly typed in your Excel sheet. So pivot tables were prepared for you with the focus that some of the users of Excel that need to analyze data may not necessarily need to have functions or to know how to actually do computations directly from data. So even those who do not want to actually go through the journey of making computations can actually come up with data analytical tools within Excel that is called pivot tables. So you can create tables which you can move around and make changes without necessarily constructing functions to come up with these tables. However, there is also an alternative called pivot charts, but in this we are going to specifically be looking at pivot tables. So in pivot tables, we call them pivot because you can change them in any direction to be able to analyze your data. So the data set that we have today is this data set here of up to 156 56 rows. What we call rows are those that are running horizontally. Like we have row number 96 that is running horizontally. You could also have row number 1, row number 9. Those are rows. We also have columns. You have a column for courses. You have column for gender. You have column for coursework 1, which is out of 15, coursework 2 out of 15, and the total coursework out of 30, and the main exam out of 70, and the total for the coursework and the exam out of 100, and then the alpha grade is also there, and also those remarks to see whether somebody has passed or someone has got a retake is also there. So we're not going to make any changes in this data, but you just need to note that if you are going to use pivot tables, then we make sure that our data is filled fully and has no spaces. So in this data here, we see that there are blank spaces. We see that there are blank spaces all through that we need to eliminate. So to deal with all your data, you make sure that you don't have blank spaces in this data set. So to do that, now we're going to remove the blank spaces. Okay, wherever you see blanks, they should be removed in this data. Now to remove blank spaces, you need to highlight your data. To highlight your data in a shortcut, you say Control A. Control A, you hold the Control key and then press A. Now our data has been highlighted at once. Now when we highlight this data, the reason that we have highlighted is actually to be able to capture all the data and find where there are blank spaces. So to find where blank spaces are without necessarily going one by one, what we are going to do here is to say Control G. So you need to press Control G. What I've done is say highlight all, Control A, and after highlighting all, Control A, I'm pressing Control G. Control G is a short form for go to. Go to, you press Control G. So you hold the Control key and also press the G. That's where I have come. Now I'm clicking here where you're seeing uh, special. So go to what? I want to go to blank spaces and all the blank spaces. That's why I've said Control G. It has popped up here a window. So in this window, I'm going to select here special. I placed special. Now I want to go to blanks. Okay, I want to go to blanks in that field that is highlighted. Okay, now you can see that my Excel has highlighted all the blank spaces that are there in this data. So wherever the blank spaces are have been highlighted. Okay, so now what we're going to do is to make sure that we actually fill the data. We're going to fill here in this space, we are going to fill BBA dash PL. And then here it is also going to duplicate downwards. We are saying that what is on top is what should be feeding down. And so here it will be BBAE. And then feeding down, here it will be female feeding down, here it will be male feeding down, here male feeding down. So that's what we are going to do here at once by just pressing a key. Having highlighted the blanks, now we can go and say place equals. It is basing from here to do for all. So now when we place equals, it is going to go there. Place equals. Equals what? We select that is above it. Equals that. Now when we say equals that and equals that cell up there, then that means that we want to do it for all. And to do it for all, what we have to do is to press Ctrl and say enter. Don't only press one, don't press enter without pressing Ctrl enter. Ctrl enter will help us to instruct our computer to say that whatever we have done in that one cell should be done in all cells, like that. So when we say Ctrl enter, let's do Ctrl enter, press the Ctrl key and then maintain the finger on the Ctrl key and then press enter. Now you can see that our blank spaces have been all filled up, and now we have all our fields filled up by by what is on top feeding down. That is good. So in that process, what we have done, just for a short while, what we have done is we have said we want to fill the blank spaces in our data. So what we've done is to highlight the data. That's the highlighting. We pressed Ctrl A. Then after pressing Ctrl A, we said let us find or go to blank spaces. To go to, we said Ctrl G. We said Ctrl G. Ctrl A is highlight all. Ctrl A highlight. Then after highlighting, we then pressed Ctrl G to go to blank spaces. Then we came down here and pressed special, then blanks, and then said OK. It highlighted for us all the blank spaces that are there in our data. Then what we did is to say yes. Now say equals. Equals, you select the one on top there, that cell on top, and then we said Control Enter to do for all. Control Enter. That is done, filling all the blank spaces. So now we no longer have blank spaces in our data, and so they are not there. So what we are going to do is to make sure that we now start to consider our pivot table. Remember, to do pivot tables, you need to make sure that your data has no blank spaces. Where the blank spaces mean 0, you need to indicate 0. Where the blank spaces actually mean a digit, that digit should be filled there. Or if it is a numeral, or it is an alphabet or alphanumerical uh, uh, figure, it has got to be typed there. The alphanumerical figures are those figures that have numbers as well as having words. Like BBA002 is having a number and words at the same time. But here we are having, so this data is already laid out for us. Now we can go on to create a pivot table. Now, creating a pivot table, usually our Excel, when we open it, it is at home up there, home, at the home page. But to create pivot tables, we need to come and say insert, insert. Then we click insert here. You can see now pivot table, recommended pivot tables. Now we're going to use a pivot table. We click in the data which we want the pivot table to capture, because the pivot table is actually creating some tables, a table which summarizes our data, trying to analyze it easily. So for that case, we've clicked where in our data and anywhere in our data, and then went to insert here, then click pivot table. We are going to have clicked pivot table. Now you can now see that our table has been highlighted up to the bottom, covering it all, up to the bottom, covering it all. I'm just going there by scrolling. I'm using a mouse, not a pad, but just to show you down there that our table is being covered. Those borders you're seeing there are highlighting to show you the table field that has been captured, or what you call the table range. So that is this definition here you see here is just a table range. So that table range, yes, now we can now see that the pivot table, where do we want our pivot table to go? We are saying, do you want the pivot table to be on the new sheet? Now on sheet 1 here down, do you want it to be on a sheet 2? Or you want the pivot table to be maintained in the existing sheet, or to sit here in this field? Okay, if you want the pivot table to be on this field without necessarily creating a new sheet, so let us have the pivot table just sitting here. When we want the pivot table to be in the existing sheet, then we click somewhere we want the pivot table to start. Let me click at this point, at this place. You've seen that when I clicked at K2, okay, K2, this is K is the column, 2 is the row, K2, it was highlighted down here. So it means that my pivot table, when I say okay, it's going to sit right here. You see now that pivot table field has come at where I have selected. So that means it is important not to select within the table field which has already data. You select in a blank space which you have there, so that your pivot table sits there. Now that we have had our pivot field come here, you can now see that we are having a chance here that we have our pivot table has come in here. you can see that all our columns, number, course, gender, this coursework 15, are all here. Okay, these are reflections of our columns here. Now the more, you can scroll down and see, okay, because they are more, so they even spread down. This one is movable. How am I moving it? I click there and then try to make sure that I just drag it a little down so that I move so that I can move it to see. So now we can see that our columns are here, and then we can now try to make sure that what is in our column can be made to be rows, or to be values, or to be maintained columns. We can also have external filters. However, in this section, in this specific tutorial, this lecture, we want to look at specifically the use of rows and values. Then later on, we shall see what we call columns. But this one specifically, we are going to use rows and values so that we are able to manage our table fields. Now, to create a table, this area you're seeing here is the pivot table field. You want your table to sit here. This is the guide. This is the list, the pivot table list. This one, or the fields. You can have here the fields. So these fields we see here. Now this one is movable. You can move it any side. You can also change how it looks, but we are going to maintain the original outlook of this. This is the originality, how it was. So let us create here a table. The table is going to start from here, spread down. So to create that table, I want to come here and say I want a table that has a row which displays courses. Now this is now course. These are the courses. You see some of the courses are repeated. We don't need to repeat them. So when we come here, I want to create a table which has rows, which rows run with what you see. These are the rows have the courses. So to do that, I am calling here course. Now I want to select course. I go to that course. I'm not going to tick here. Just want to, even ticking here takes the field into a row, but that's not what I want. I want to touch here, to come and touch here where you see those 4 arrows pointing up, down, forward and back. I hold the mouse and drag it down, drop it. You can drop it there or drop it here. Now I'm going to drop course under rows. Now you can see that our field has been filled up by courses. Let me take it back. I can also pick it. I've come to it. I want to pick it, drop it back. I've dropped it back. Now it is no longer here. Now I want to pick it. Pick it, I go to it, hold the mouse key, then move it down, drop it there. Yeah, it comes on there. Okay, now I want the computer to count for me how many courses do we have. how many courses do we have, how many students actually who did these courses, how many students that did these courses, how many times there is a course like BBA repeated, BBA only. If I sought just in here, I came in and looked for BBA. Oh, BBA is there, BBA only, BBA another. Okay, they are BBAs. So with this, we don't need to do what? To count. We can ask the computer to count for us. Remember that when you click elsewhere, our pivot table fields go away, and you click outside, the pivot table fields go away. When you click back to the table, the fields return. The field has now returned. Good. Remember that all this is in insert, but here the pivot table list has returned. Good. Now when it returns, click elsewhere, it goes. Click in the field, it comes back. Waiting. Now we want the computer to count for us how many courses, how many students were on each course. We come here and say, if a student is repeated, for example, BBA 1, that's a student, BBA 2, that's a student of BBA, like that. But here we are having two BBAs, possibly there is a misspelling somewhere. So let us bear with that and carry, we are going to carry course and drop course here in values, because when you drop anything in values, then you want a number other than just anything else. You want numbers. So when we drop here course in values, the computer is saying that it wants to count for you. It is simply counting for you how many are in the course. So that's why it has converted here and saying that it is counting for you. So there are 3 students doing BBA, there is also another BBA, so those could be 4. Then BBAAF in that list, they are 18, BBABF 6, until it is doing for all the 156. So that is the total 156. Those were number of rows counted here, but it is doing for us. So that means that there are 156 students who are in that university doing the different courses. As you see, BIT 51, possibly it has the highest. Now this is a summary. What we are going to add on here, we are going to add on what we call percentages. When using pivot tables, we can avoid to use any formula when using pivot tables. So the people who constructed pivot tables wanted to avoid people from going through formulas or what you call functions to arrive at results. So if we want to have a column for percentages in here, a percentage coming in, another column here for percentages, maybe percentages of students doing courses. Okay, let us carry another course and drop it in values to create another column. Let me extend this here. You can see that it has created a count 2. Now on my side, the count 2, I want this count 2 to be percentage other than also being numbers. To do that, I come to that count 2. This is the count 2 you can see. I am coming to count 2. I want to make it in terms of percentages, not just numbers. So I come to count 2 here, count 2. When I click it, it brings for me here value field setting. I want to make it a setting. Okay, wow, it has come that side. Let me extend it nearer here. Oh, I bring it. Okay, let me maintain it here. So I'm going to come here and say yes, it is counting, not summing. This is okay to count. Then I come here to show value as, okay, show value as, okay. Then say no calculation. No, this time we want a calculation. Let's come calculation, no calculation, not. We want a calculation in percentage. Okay, percentage. Now it needs here to, it is asking us, what do you want to be the parent total? The parent total is this total here, which is calling, it is calling parent grand total. You want to base on which parent total? The parent total is to make, you remember to make a percentage here instead of a 3, you want it to be percent. You can come and say this is 3 out of 156 times 100. Then if you want to make this one here a percentage, so that here there is a percentage in column 2, then you would say 1 out of 156 times 100. So that's what the computer is going to do for us here. So what we are going to do, we are going to tell the computer, consider percentage of parent total. Percentage of the parent total. Consider this 3 here, as the percentage of the 156. Okay, so that's what we are selecting here, percentage of parent total. Let's see, percentage of parent total. If you select percentage of current total, you see what it is going to do. 100, 100, 100. Oh, but we are controlling them here. What we exactly want is percentage of current row. That is, let us set again. Consider value field setting. Come to show value as. We are going to consider percentage of parent row. That one is what we exactly want. Parent row. The row, this one, divide by the total 156 times 100. That's what we call parent row. So when you consider that, you can now see it is making for us in percentage. It is doing it automatically for all at once without necessarily using a formula. But if you want to do it manually, you say equals this. If just let me just say this is the percentage I want manually, percentage I want manually to do it, percentage. Then you would say equals, you press equals, this is cell 3, 3, that is the cell L2, equals that one, divide by, divide, you place, well, for me my divide by is here, where let me just make a correction here, where I can say equals, place equals select the figure, that is 3. Of course, divide by the 156 equals, you see now that, okay, you see that if I said percent, you would see 2. But if I increase number of decimal points, you can now see to 2 decimal places makes that. Then I click downwards. Wow, it is doing that. When you say spread downwards, you see what it is doing. Why? Because we have not locked our cells. We've not locked our cells. Now that is that row. You say divide by 156. That's a manual setup. It's a manual setup. So with this manual setup, yeah, you'll be using formulas. But when we are in pivot tables, usually we don't use formulas. What I've done here is just to set here a value field setting, and then I selected here percentage of parent row total. It did it automatically. But if it was to be done manually, then the calculations can be done using the cell references, like you need to lock the keys using dollar signs so that this 156 does not change. But I don't want to draw you into that. That is how you can actually create your pivot table. I would like to create another pivot table here. Create another pivot table. If you want to create another pivot table, I can select my data down there, use existing sheet. Okay, it is not allowing because we have already a pivot table in this field. So I want to create another pivot table on a new sheet. Pivot table on a new sheet. New sheet. New sheet, you see it is leaving this data and creating a new sheet in here. That's what it is calling a new sheet. It creates a sheet down here where you actually be able to deal with your data. Now this pivot table we are going to create here is for gender. For gender as a row. You see gender is female and male. Then let it count for us how many people are in each gender. You can see that in each gender, the females are 68, males are 88. Then I want also to make this gender here to be another column, but in terms of percentage. That's column 2. I want to say, I come down there, I say value field setting. Value field setting, I come here and say show value as a percentage. I look in the rows, percentage of parent row total. So you see that now the females are 43.59 and then males are 56.41. But there is also an alternative where you can choose to make sure that that there is no calculation made, it takes back. But if you want it to be percentage, you just click here and make sure that the calculation is percentage of parent row total. Then it will make them appear the way you want. So that is how we can actually be able to make sure that our data is organized in terms of percentages using pivot tables. You can also try with other fields to create other tables as you may wish. You will try out all those. So to do, there are also other formats here. You can see number format. You can format your numbers to look some way which is more appealing than the one we have done before. So here we are having some freezing of the computer. That's why you're seeing it frozen. So because the computer is frozen, for now I would like to close this session here, where we have seen that you can deal with your data, create the pivot tables, and then create percentage of the pivot tables here, and be able to manage your data and analyze it well. So thank you for having attended this. I pray that you go on trying again and again. Where you find some difficulties, then we can be able to handle the difficulties